Hey guys, today let's do the unboxing and overview of the Sony Xperia 5. I know this is a weird name, but that's how Sony chose to name their phones. Is their flagship models are always called Xperia 1s, and then their mid-range models are called Xperia 5s, and their lower budget range is Xperia 10s. And this being the fifth iteration or fifth generation of these devices, so in this case the 5. So yeah, this device actually came out last year, but for me, yeah, I've always been a fan of Sony Xperia phones. I've owned the Xperia Z3 Compact was my first one, which I used in Korea back in the day, like 10 years ago. And that phone was a very good phone. It survived for like, I never had any issues with Xperia phones until recently. So yeah, that phone survived for like 3 or 4 years. I used that one. Then Xperia XC1 Compact, which I did a video on as well. That one lasted for a few years. And then recently, for the past year and a half, I've used the Sony Xperia 5 IV. So this was my, I would say it's my secondary phone, because I used the Galaxy Z Fold 4 for a bit too as my main phone. Now I'm using the Asus Zenfone 10 as my main phone. But yeah, the Sony Xperia 5 IV has been my secondary phone for a good 1.5 years now. I really like it. The only issue, literally the only issue I had with it was the camera. It wasn't that good of a camera, and that's why I prefer to use the Zenfone camera instead. But otherwise, everything was really good on it. The stereo speakers were good. The display was good. I like the fact that it still has the headphone jack. It still has a micro SD card slot. It still has a camera shutter button. Has a fingerprint sensor on the power button, so that's pretty easy. I like the tall, narrow form factor. It's easy for one-handed gripping. Yeah, and the fact that it was pretty durable and everything, water resistant. And here's where the issue came is, yeah, Sony Xperia phones for a long time have had the water resistance, right? They were one of the first, I think, that had the full water resistance, and they also kept the headphone jack. And yeah, last time when I was in Korea, I took this to the water because when I was, it was summertime, and I decided to go to the pool, and yeah, I thought that this would be water resistant because all Sony phones are water resistant for a long time, and unfortunately, it turns out it wasn't. I don't know what happened. I guess there must have been some like minor crack in the phone somewhere. I don't know. I've owned this phone for 1.5 years, and it's dropped down on the ground many times, and maybe during one of the drops, there was a crack that formed or something. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but the water unfortunately got into this phone, and now it's dead. So I lost all my photos, all my chats and everything, although my data on this phone is gone because of it. That was very sad for me. Yeah, I thought this was water resistant. I don't know, maybe there's some unseen crack somewhere here where the water got in. I don't know how the water got in, but yeah, the water got into this phone, and then now the phone's dead. So yeah, it was supposed to be water resistant, but maybe because this phone, I thought this phone was very, very durable. Because honestly, it survived so many drops, and it always came back to life every time, didn't have any issues. But it must have suffered some kind of hairline crack somewhere that I can't notice. And then when I took it into the water, water got in. So yeah, it's supposed to be IP68 water resistant, but I guess it was not anymore. So anyways, this phone died. So for me, being the Sony fanboy that I am, I just bought the next iteration as kind of a replacement, right? I really did like the Sony 5 IV though. I really like this phone. It's sad that it died. This is the first phone that actually like died like this on me. I don't think I've ever had an experience like this before, where the phone just like outright went kaput. I mean, you got water got into it, and there's no way to revive it. I've tried charging it, after letting it rest for a while. Of course, tried recharging it for a very long time. Nothing works. Absolutely nothing works. Like, there's no signs of life at all. It's just totally dead. So this is the first time it's happened to me where a phone just like outright died like that. Completely died. So anyways, very sad. Holding a funeral for the Sony Xperia 5 IV, and now Sony Xperia 5, the next iteration, which is actually from last year. It's technically a generation old now. But what's the upgrades for this phone over this one? Well, not too much. It's mostly the same. It's just upgrading the processor to a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. This one was a Gen 1. 5,000 milliamp hour battery. You know, for Sony Xperia phones, they always last quite a while. The battery life in general, like I always find Sony Xperia phones, you know, they last at least a day and a half, I would say, sometimes 2 days. So yeah, usually their battery life is really good. 6.1 inch display, I think that's the same. 12 megapixel, 48 megapixel. So the cameras are upgraded on this one as well, 48 megapixel plus 12 megapixel. So the camera should be a little bit better, and the processor should be a little bit faster. Otherwise, it should be a very similar phone to the 5.4. Made in Thailand, which is interesting. I don't know how many phones are made in Thailand, but this one is. So anyways, yeah, let's do the unboxing of the 5.4. This retailed for what, $750 is how much I got it for. $750 US. Nano SIM, dual SIM actually. So yeah, let's take a look. It's too bad Sony Xperia phones are not more popular. I wish they were more popular, but they're not. This one comes in very environmentally friendly packaging. Looks like recycled kind of packaging here. Okay, manufacturer Sony Corporation, and this is actually made in Thailand, I believe. Very minimalistic packaging. You don't get any sort of cables or charger or anything. Yeah, literally, like there's nothing. No cables, no charger, nothing. It's only the phone, that's it. And a quick start guide here. Put the SIM card in, power on, plug it into the wall. Okay, doesn't get any easier than that, I guess. Yeah, this is the box for it. This box is very minimalistic, and I think this is the same kind of box Sony used for their 1000XM5 headphones as well. Very similar, environmentally friendly, recycled packaging, but at the same time, I mean, wow, this is as minimalistic as you can get, Sony. Like, not even a cable or a charger or anything. I think even Apple gives you a cable, at least. Not even a cable. But anyways, this is what the phone looks like. Pretty much the same as the 5.4, isn't it? Yeah, almost the same. The only difference is that this is maybe a little bit more white. Yeah, I think this is like, this white is like a little bit more faded, I guess. This white seems like more white to me. Yeah, anyways, they're both white. This one is like a little bit of a different shade of white, if that makes sense. And the camera module is different because the camera is actually different on this one. But otherwise, they're pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, it's got the same buttons in the same places. Same antennas in the same places, same micro SD card slot, USB-C, headphone jack. Yeah, pretty much it's just almost the same looking phone, except this one has a different camera module and a faster processor. That's really the only upgrades. It does feel like this is like a little bit more substantial, I think. It's actually maybe a little bit thicker here. Feels like a little bit more substantial here on the side. Like the frame of the phone feels more substantial on the 5.5. Yeah, it does feel, yeah, the side of the phone, I think for the 5.5 feels a little bit more substantial. Yeah, I just find like the frame of this phone, the Xperia 5.5, is like more solid for some reason. Like it just feels a little bit more premium than the 5.4. Maybe they use some different materials for this frame or something like that, but it just feels a little bit more premium, a little bit more solid and more durable, I guess. But yeah, that's really the only differences, I think. Otherwise, very, very similar. Yeah, I mean, we can go over the externals. So just go over the specs for a bit. 6.1 inch display, 1080 by 2520 is the resolution. 48 megapixel back camera. This is an upgrade over the 5.4, one of the few upgrades. 8 gigabytes of RAM, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor. That's the other upgrade on this phone. 5,000 milliamp hour battery. IP68 water resistant. Hopefully it will hold that resistance rating for this one. Yep, dual SIM card support, OLED display, 120 Hz, HDR10, BT 2020. That's all supported. Gorilla Glass Victus 2. I think that's actually an upgrade too. The Gorilla Glass is upgraded to Victus 2. Of course, Android is upgraded as well. Android 13, upgradable to 14. Yeah, micro SD. 128 gigabytes, that's how much it has for this version. 8 gigs of RAM, yeah, 12 megapixel ultra wide and the 48 megapixel wide. The selfie camera is a 12 megapixel as well. That's also been upgraded, I believe. Zeiss optics on the camera. That's what you would expect from typical Sony phones as well, with the T-Star coating, anti-reflective. Stereo speakers. That's another thing I like about Sony. They got stereo speakers. They keep the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which is great. Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.3, LDAC, which is what Sony supports. aptX Adaptive has that. Yeah, overall it's pretty much like, yeah, very, very similar to the 5.4. Only major difference being the Gen 2 Snapdragon, the upgraded camera modules, and the Gorilla Glass I think is upgraded as well. And this the frame does feel a little bit more substantial in this one. But just to go over the externals again, I mean, we've got NFC on the back, as Sony always has NFC stuff. This is the two camera modules here. One is 12 megapixel ultra wide, one is a 48 megapixel main with a Zeiss T-Sharp anti-reflective tilt coating. On the side here, nothing on this side. On this side, you get the fingerprint sensor as well as the power button. You got a volume rocker, and you got the dedicated camera shutter button, which Sony has always had on their phones. And then on top, you got the headphone jack, another great feature of Sony phones. They still keep that. On the bottom, you get USB-C, and this is micro SD as well. So nice to have micro SD support. Another great thing about Sony phones is that you can use your fingernail to just lift this out. You don't need a SIM ejector tool. So this side, you have the SIM card on one side and SD on the other side. Actually, I think this may support one SIM card, and maybe the other SIM card is an eSIM or something. But anyways, you got micro SD support one side, SD card on one side and SIM on the other. And you can just take it out using your fingernail. Another great feature of Sony phones. You don't need a SIM ejector tool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the externals. So pretty minimalistic packaging though. But yeah, external wise, almost the same as the 5.4. So yeah, we'll just turn it on and just go through the interface a bit, which should be a newer version of Android. That's another upgrade it has. Alright, so now I have my Sony Xperia 5.5 all set up now. Well, you guys know how Android works, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure most people have used Android phones before, but yeah, it's not too different than your typical stock Android UI. It's kind of a good thing about Sony is that they never really mess around too much with the UI. So it's not like Samsung or old LG phones where they put a layer over the UI or anything. No, it's pretty much similar to stock Android. So if you guys have used Pixel phones or anything, then Sony Xperias are not that different. Yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, could test out the camera here. So let's see, you have the box right here, and then we'll just have to use the camera button to open the camera. Okay, Open Photography Pro is Sony Xperia's camera application here, which is based on Sony. Well, it has a lot of settings from Sony's Alpha series of cameras, which are very popular. Okay, so yeah, you have a bunch of different camera settings here, right? You can have the night shooting auto mode. You can have the creative look. Let's see. This one is drive mode. And then you got scenery mode right here. You can change the bokeh as well. You can change the brightness and everything. And of course you can turn around. This is me right here, the selfie camera. So anyways, we can take a picture here. Whoops. There, let my hand out of the way. Okay. Okay, and then flip it back around. Okay, we can do panorama right here, but we can go to a full menu. Aspect ratio, drive mode, digital zoom settings, flash mode, night shooting, focus mode, face eye, AF, autofocus, grid lines. There's a bunch of different settings you can adjust here. You can change from basic mode to auto mode, to program auto, shutter speed priority, manual exposure, and then this is a lot of different settings that you can choose here, like HDR, continuous shooting feedback, soft skin effect, focus area, color peaking. Yeah, a lot of stuff that you can change here from. All this is actually very similar controls to what you find in Sony's Alpha cameras. That's where it's all taken from. So you can really fine-tune the white balance here, the focus, which is a continuous autofocus or single shot, manual focus. Drive mode is continuous shooting, self-timer, HDR, continuous shooting. This is focus area. This is exposure. You can change the ISO, metering mode here, flash mode, creative look, white balance, face eye autofocus, auto HDR, D range optimizer. I mean, there's so many settings that you can choose here. And the shutter speed, you can change that too. Lens 24mm, I can change to 16mm, which is going to be like the ultra wide basically. 48mm, which is telephoto. and keep it standard wide angle here. Let's see, yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do here. So anyways, yeah, let's see, I'm just gonna go with auto mode. Actually, I don't usually fiddle around with all that, so when I'm taking pictures using my phone, I just want to keep it simple here. So just use standard auto mode here, and then I can press down this shutter button. Half press it down means to focus, and then you can click on it to yep, actually take the picture. And I'll tell you the f-stop here, as well as the shutter speed and the ISO, as well as the white balance. So you can see there's a lot of different settings here for the camera app, because that's one of the selling points of Sony's phones. Although in my experience, Sony's camera abilities have not been as good as Google's or Apple's or even Samsung's, because yeah, their software optimization isn't quite as good. I mean, their hardware for the cameras is great, but there's always something missing from the software side. So their pictures actually end up not looking as good as most Pixel, Apple, and Samsung photos. But yeah, I don't know. Sony has been improving every generation, so we'll see. So this is a photo that we took, right? Okay. Okay. So here's the picture that we just took. I think this one you can't see too much detail. This is the little selfie photo that we took as well, which is okay. I mean, for a selfie pic, but it's not great either. There's better cameras for selfie. Oh, I got a drone right here, DJI Neo. Let's take a picture of that. That one I can probably see more detail on it. Okay, I'm turning this to auto mode here, and then yeah. Okay, let's see how good that one is. Okay. Alright, so yeah, I can zoom in here. I don't know, still, okay, this part is blurry. Looks like they decided to focus on the back part instead. The front part is a bit blurry. Overall, I mean, it's okay. I still think that it doesn't compete with the top end Pixel, Apple, or Samsung phones though. So I think Sony still lags behind the top flagship Apple, Samsung, Google phones when it comes to cameras, camera quality. I mean, this should have been in focus, man. I don't know why this wasn't in focus. Decided to focus on the back part instead of the drone. Alright, so I just took some pictures outside. So this is what it looks like in telephoto. So this is using the telephoto mode here. That's actually pretty good. This is noticeably better than the 5.4, so definitely there's an improvement in the camera over the 5.4 for sure. I can definitely see. This is in telephoto, right? It's 2x zoomed, so that's pretty decent amount of detail here. And then this is the ultra wide. Obviously, you're not going to see as much detail zoomed in as on the telephoto, but yeah, the ultra wide's always been very iffy on Sony phones. I mean, it's not great. Yeah, definitely I think there's better ultra wides. I think the telephoto was okay, but the ultra wide's nah. Still better than the 5.4, of course, but yeah, I would say the ultra wide is definitely not quite as good as some of their competitors. But the telephoto is actually pretty impressive. I like the amount of detail in the telephoto is good, and then the standard wide angle. Yeah, I also think the standard wide angle is, yeah, it's okay. It doesn't really compete with Google, Pixel, or Apple, or Samsung though. So again, I think Sony has some work to do. Doesn't exactly compete with Google or Apple, Samsung with the standard wide or ultra wide. But I do think the telephoto is probably the most impressive. This is actually a pretty good telephoto. So anyways, that's it for the pictures. Again, Sony has gotten better with their camera over the years, but it still lags behind Google, Apple, and Samsung, of course. But you know, still better than before. It's still a better camera than the 5.4 that I had, and it should be because it's a newer phone. All right, let's check out YouTube. We're gonna test out the speakers as well as the display here. So let's do my standard test track here for a K-pop video. I can see a lot of good colors and just good visuals. Okay, yeah, this is the one I usually use. Okay. turn up the volume to full on this so you guys can hear the stereo speakers in action. Ooh, there's even a dynamic vibration mode on YouTube, interesting enough. Okay, this full volume gets pretty loud. I mean, OLED display, but Sony OLEDs have always been pretty nice. I always felt like Sony OLEDs are cut above. Of course, there's letterboxing here because this is a very tall display, so it's got some letterboxing. Not as standard 16:9. The speakers are great though, as you would expect from Sony. Yeah, anyways, as you expect, great OLED display by Sony here. Really, I've always loved Sony's OLED. I always felt like it's a cut above other OLED displays. And speakers are fantastic. Sony's always had one of the best speakers on phones, actually, on mobile phones. They've always had the stereo speakers. So yeah, overall, it's an iterative upgrade over the 5.4. But you know what? Like it doesn't. There's nothing worse about it, so it's just a strict upgrade because the processor is faster, it's got a better camera, and yeah, it's pretty much just an iterative upgrade, but it's a strict upgrade. There's nothing worse about it than the 5.4, so they didn't take anything away or anything like that. They kept all the things like the micro SD and the headphone jack and stereo speakers, and yeah, basically everything that shutter button that Sony's known for, they kept all of that. And they just made an iterative upgrade, which for me is a good thing. So I've always liked Sony phones for that. They keep a lot of the traditional features and just make iterative upgrades more or less. Unfortunately, most people don't really even know about Sony phones. Like, yeah, they're not well marketed or advertised, and people scoff at the premium prices they charge. And yeah, unfortunately, most people, yeah, don't really pick up Sony Xperia phones, which is a shame because Sony is one of the last remaining Android manufacturers that's not Samsung or one of the Chinese ones, right? So this is pretty much like after LG went away for mobile, and you know all the other well, Motorola is now still making phones, but they're Chinese owned now. Nokia is still alive, but they're not really making phones, kind of. BlackBerry's pretty much dead. HTC's been dead for a long time. Like all the old players in the industry are pretty much dead. So just Sony is barely hanging on. I don't think anyone's really buying their phones too much, but they're barely hanging on. And then you have Samsung the giant and Apple the giant. So and then you have a bunch of Chinese manufacturers that are still kind of hanging on. I guess Asus is another one, but not many people know about that Asus either. Like, these two are going to be my main phones, and I don't think people are aware that Asus or Sony still makes phones. So I'm like the only one that's like buying them here in North America. I don't know any other person in North America like that has these phones, but hey, I'm going to support the smaller companies, okay? Samsung is too big. Even Google, Google Pixel, and like, I don't think I'm going to give any more of my money to them. I want to support the underdogs, and so it's another reason why. And plus, I like their features, like Sony's features, Asus features. I feel like they should be more well known because these are solid phones. Zenfone 10 solid, Xperia 5.5 solid phones. They just don't have as much marketing or recognition, and unfortunately, right? I'm going to support them though because these are pretty much underdogs. In the mobile phone industry, these two are pretty much underdogs. Not many people in North America here know about them. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Sony Xperia 5.5, I got it as pretty much a replacement for my Sony 5.4, which unfortunately died. So, yep, it's going to be my main secondary phone from now on. And yeah, I've always loved Sony phones for their features. So yeah, it's only their camera which has been lagging behind, but this camera is definitely better than the 5.4. So, I mean, Sony is improving bit by bit with that. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, thanks for watching.